Well, welcome back. Friday, March 20th, 2026. I am Seth Leibsohn, and we kick off the hour on Friday, as we usually do, with our dear friend George Khalaf, political consultant and a political participant in that he is running for the State House of Representatives in Legislative District 3. You can help him out or go to his website at georgekhalaf.com, Khalaf. And I always kind of like Fridays, too, as it's like my most ecumenical day. We have such a sincere and committed Christian in you, and then you get followed up with Rabbi Alush. It's just kind of a nice way to, carry things forward into the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is actually the first thing you put on your website, Christian husband, father, America First Conservative. I've asked you to do it a few times. It's so moving to me. It's kind of your stump, or part of what you would call a stump speech, where you do break those things down. Can I invite you to do it again?
Yeah.
I've heard it 10 times, and I can hear it never enough.
No, thank you. Look, it was important for me on this campaign, and the way that I've always advised friends and clients was, be authentic. Look, we're humans. We're not perfect. So during the course of this campaign, and anyone who's known me in my life, you're not going to know me to be perfect, but you're going to know me to be sincere. You're going to know me to be honest. You're going to know me to be forthright. And so I start with Christian, because as a Christian, you understand my values. You understand that my truth is the same Sunday through Saturday, meaning that it doesn't matter who I talk to. I'm on air with you. We're off air together. We're in, the confines of my home. I'm talking to my wife, Brianna, or I'm at an event, or I'm in front of Christians, or I'm in front of non-believers. I'm going to speak the same way. Why? Because my truth is eternal, and my truth comes from one place. And that means that I proclaim that truth boldly. You humble yourself when you're not correct, or you say something that's incorrect, and so on and so forth from there. But that's very important for me. And then second, I talk about the fact that I am a husband to Brianna, mainly to say that we do this together. We are one team. We made this decision through prayer and through discussion. And she was down there today when I submitted my more than 2,000 ballot petitions.
Oh, did you do that today?
Officially qualify for the ballot.
Okay, good.
And then I'm a father to 3 boys, ranging from 10 years old to 5 months old. Why is that important? Because I have skin in the game. We have children. We've got children that are in the K-12 system. Children, our newest that was just born, and all those things means that I'm an America First conservative, right? I don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm a conservative," and then you're left wondering, well, is he just saying what I want to hear, or is he actually those things? Well, no. You understand by my background. You understand by my faith. You understand by the fact that in the way that Brianna and I conduct ourselves in our marriage, I want to be able to, in my conduct, be a testament to what it means to be a Christian. And then you'll understand that with my background as a Lebanese Christian, that my family has fought for the faith. My uncle died for the faith. This is in my blood. This is something we have stood for, our faith, and stood for our values. And that makes me not just appreciate, that makes me deeply, deeply understand the beauty that is the United States of America, and appreciate even deeper the freedoms that are afforded to us because of the men and women that fought for those stars and stripes.
Lovely to hear you put it that way. I was thinking as you were speaking, the notion of a marriage, which is in your list of commitments or self-identification priorities, Christian husband, father, America First Conservative. There is a notion about marriage itself that the state obviously sanctions, but that you are announcing to the community who you are as a new unit or as a committed couple, because it carries with it a certain accountability in the community too, doesn't it? That's what I was thinking about what you were saying in all these things. When you announce you're a Christian so publicly, when you announce you're a husband so publicly, when you announce you're a father so publicly, it tells people who you are, to be sure, or who you want to be seen as, but it's also a level of accountability you're asking for, isn't it? You're saying, hold me accountable to these things, or rather, I will be held accountable for these things.
Yes, and Seth, rightfully so. There's a lot of difficulty and anger many people feel with their elected officials because they feel that they say one thing and they do another.
Right.
And so why I want to lead in this way as well is for this reason. Something I said earlier. I am not perfect. I've made mistakes. And so with that, though, I want to be the man who has individuals around them. I've got men in my church that function in this way, in the way that my wife and I function with each other, that will hold me accountable, that I could seek wisdom and guidance from, but that will also hold my feet to the fire, and that will allow me to then be willing to, in the presence of God, humble myself and say, hey, I am wrong in this, or I made a mistake. We can never expect another person. I can't expect you as a person not to ever make a mistake as you can't expect of me. And I don't think any voters expect that and vice versa. What we do expect is a sense of humility, and that's absolutely not at all been the way that we function politically, and that's wrong. And so, yes, I am doing it differently, but there is a bigger, I should say, target, but also a higher standard.
Yeah.
And I totally get that because we as Christians, we don't take this lightly. We don't take that moniker as people that follow God. We cannot take that moniker lightly. Why? Because there's a depth there, and we represent, in a way, we are ambassadors of the faith in good, but unfortunately, we also can be in bad, and that's something that we need to be very cognizant of.
Yeah, I think, too, well said. I think, too, when you put it out like that, Christian husband, father, it's you want to be the Christian God wants you to be. It's for you as well as the community. It's a commitment to yourself, too, isn't it? When you say husband, you want to be the husband you want Brianna to have, right?
Yes.
And when you say father, you want to be the father your children should want to have, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And again, you said that the Christian that God wants, I believe very strongly in God's will, meaning that I pray very consistently for his will to be done upon my life. Right. And again, I don't want to get too theological. I know that's in the next hour. But there's two things I've been praying really consistently. There's a Proverbs 21:31. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. One of my good friends and mentors in my life, Kathy Harrod, that's the Bible verse that has really dictated her life and her career. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. Meaning we, as Christians, are called to make the horse ready and called to go into battle, but understand that victory, the outcome, is in God's hands. Mm-hmm. And two, a verse that was obviously very deep to Charlie's heart, Isaiah 6:8, that God calls out to Isaiah, said, whom shall I send on our behalf? And Isaiah responds, it says, here I am, send me. Yeah. That when God calls, that I answer in the way that my uncle answered, that my father answered, that my mother answered, and so many of our men and women in America have answered that call, because I do believe it's a call from God to say, then go out into war. And I bring those two things up because this week there was something that happened that didn't go my way. I sought an appointment to the House of Representatives and I wasn't selected. Okay. And every day that I prayed in the lead up to that, I prayed for God's will to occur. Why? Because there's going to be things that happen in our lives that go our way and don't go our way. And I'm grateful that Cody Rhyme received that appointment, and I went in and went out of that understanding that, look, God's will was done. Now, I'm a human. Of course, I wanted to be appointed, but I'm saying this on air to also be able to describe that this is the way that I will process difficult things. This is the way that I do look to conduct myself, and I hope that we can speak more honestly about these types of things, because I do think we'll be better as a culture for it.
Yeah. When I saw that you didn't receive that appointment, I had a few thoughts, which was, okay, fine. That was never the goal when you announced for this race in the first place. You were always looking to a November election anyway. And circumstances changed that created a vacuum that you might have been possibly appointed to. And the quote I wanted to give you, George, and I don't know if I did when we spoke earlier this week, is a quote from a general, United States general during the Korean War. He said, "We are not retreating, we are advancing in a different direction." And this is an advance. And, the notion of the appointment was a very short possibility that came up quite by unforeseen circumstances. But for the month in which this was a possibility, has nothing to do with your campaign. Has really nothing to do with your campaign. You were campaigning anyway. There was this little, perhaps, island you might have rested on for a moment, but you were always going to be running for November.
100%. And it was going to all be in God's timing.
Right.
And now the resolve is quadrupled down. Anyone that knows me knows that when I face a bit of a friction, I'm going to double down or triple down. That's how I've done my entire career, my entire life. Definitely, ask my mom growing up. When I heard no, I found a way to make it a yes. I was a very persuasive kid, and now as a man, as a father, as a husband, as someone who's a candidate, as I'm out and about in the district, I am proud for the support that I've gotten. And onward to July 21st, and of course onward to November.
Fantastic. When we come back, we'll talk about some state politics. We'll talk about some national politics. George Khalaf is my guest, Khalaf, candidate for House of Representatives here in the state of Arizona. GeorgeKhalaf.com. Help this great man out. He and I will be right back. We're coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. And I don't know, just thanks for coming in, George, and doing this. You always you're a salve to the angst. You calm me a little bit. Thank you. It's not easy to do. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans, the kind that others won't touch, and they'll provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. With YRefi, you can reduce your monthly payment, ensuring affordability and financial relief. When the payment on your distressed or defaulted private loan is so big that you can't really ever get ahead in your finances, YRefi is the place to call. They can also save you thousands of dollars in their refinancing and even lower your total cost. If you find yourself in this situation, give them a call, 888-YREFI-85. That's 888-YREFY-85, or check them out online at YRefi.com, YREFY.com. George Khalaf is my guest. He's a candidate for Legislative District 3, House of Representatives, State House of Representatives here in Arizona, but also with the Resolute Group and Data Orbital, one of the most sought-after political consultants and pollsters. I want to talk about some state politics, but let's save it for some national stuff going on, too. Any national trends you're seeing right now, George, that are of interest, particularly perhaps with regard to the Election Integrity Act, to how the MAGA movement is or is not still in high support of President Trump, anything in regard to the war. The polling that I have seen, does not match the volume or the volubility of certain people in podcast land and certain writers who keep saying that Donald Trump is squandering his MAGA mandate. I don't see that in the polls. I'm seeing 90+% support from all kinds of Republicans for what Donald Trump is doing, particularly in the Middle East. But you tell me. Yeah,
so a lot to unpack there. Yep. We'll just say a quick word on the SAVE Act. Yeah. Critical to pass. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to get it passed. Right. It has all to do with the talking filibuster and not, and what do we do there. I understand what both sides are saying. It is critical we secure our elections. I really don't know how that's going to move through the Senate. We've moved quite a bit out of the House that is getting stalled in the Senate. So there's a significant amount of pressure, though, on senators. So I think that's the word on that. We have to get the SAVE Act passed. That's the bottom line. On the polling has been clear. MAGA and Republican favorability towards the president is where it's been. Where there is movement is among independents. The problem is polling independents is one of the most difficult things, and any pollster who's being honest with you will tell you that, meaning, one, which subset, because independents are not monolithic, and two, what portion of them are going to vote or not vote. How does that actually affect elections? Look, it is still too early to tell. I would say from I think the dynamics that the war is having on things that are in our face, like gas prices, it's even if someone is not going to hold that to the ballot box in November, it's immediately tangible, right? Yeah. Now, I think it's bananas that in the span of a week, gas goes up $1.25 when 3% of the oil goes through the Hormuz Strait. I understand that I'm not trying to pretend like I don't know macroeconomic understanding. I understand why that's happening, but also we're 20 days into a war. Yeah, here. It's a little ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, yes, there's obviously a perceived supply disruption, and so there's an immediate spiking. But I don't remember the last time our gas has almost been $5 in Arizona, and we have had conflict in the Middle East. So there's that aspect of it. But again, I feel like the polling is fairly inconclusive still on do people like or not like, because the war is also ever evolving. I mean, I think in general people don't want boots on the ground, but we're not there yet, or we're not there at all, and I hope we'll never be there, but there's still a significant amount that's happening. I don't know, there's just so much that's changing every day with the war.
George, is it fair to say, and maybe it's not, but is it fair to say that even if this war in Iran goes exactly the way the best case scenarios would paint it, that is to say significant unconditional surrender or destruction of any military capabilities of Iran, And then let's just shoot for the moon here, and let's say the people of Iran themselves, the citizens of Iran themselves, formulate enough of an effort to create their own organic change of regime from within without any outside boots on the ground. That still, because it's Donald Trump, he's probably even at that point not going to get above 50% approval. It seems to me ridiculous. I'm being blunt about this. It seems to me that there's nothing that Trump can succeed at that is ever going to – there is such baked-in antipathy towards him, in other words, that anything above 50 is probably a golden pot, a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, just non-existent.
It's happened once, and it happened right after the 24 election, which was a phenomenon of its in and of itself. I'll say this: you know how when you're shopping online, you can select only black shoes, and you're seeing black shoes out of this, the myriad of colored shoes. I wish we could do that in public opinion, meaning, and this is to answer your question, meaning if we could select only the 10% of people that are in the middle that actually have changing opinions on President Trump. Okay? Because sincerely, 45 are hardcore, yes. I mean, we support him. 45 doesn't matter what he does, right? Saves puppies, cures cancer. Like I don't even know that we're meaning that facetiously anymore. Like they just do not like it, right?
I don't mean it facetiously.
And again, for those that are going to give me a break on the 10, it could be 10%, it could be 15%. You know what I mean? That in the middle, and I don't even know if they're purely in the political middle, but those that are not baked in. If we just focused on them, it's just impossible to do. That would really give us a sense on our opinions changing. Because super loud opinions opposing the war, if they're coming from the progressive left, those are people that we're never going to support them no matter what. It just was never going to happen. And so to answer your question directly, I think exactly yes, the war could go perfectly. In the way that wars, to the extent that wars can go.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just shooting for the moon here.
And
right.
then, yes, they still wouldn't support him, right? Almost every candidate now has a floor and a ceiling because we just have baked-in opinions. If you're a Republican, there's a whole swath of people that just don't support you. If you're a Democrat, there's a whole swath of people that don't support you. There are some people that rise above that, but at the national level, very difficult to do. You do it at a legislative level, maybe at a state level, but even then, it's rare. It really is rare.
And what does that say about certain congressional races we're looking at here? There are some pretty close congressional seats that are up right now, right? Theoretically, CD. I mean, you know this better, so just correct me whenever I say something wrong. Theoretically, CD1. I think we have a really good shot at CD4, but certainly Siscomani seat. What does it say about these seats that are kind of teetering?
I mean, look. In general, seats around the country, it says that it's going to really come down, I think, district by district. Yeah. I mean, yes, there's going to be a nationalization, but it's going to matter. So, for example, let me pick on one because I know that like the back of my hand. We've added 50,000 registered Republicans since redistricting in CD1, and we're now at a registration advantage of 12%, right? Yeah. Understanding that not all those Republicans always vote for Republicans, but that margin's only growing. Congressman Siscomani, same things. There's growth there. And even in CD4. Now, the CD4 growth is a little bit smaller, but there's growth in all of these congressional districts. Why? Because there's growth in Arizona. Yeah. We can get into a little bit of I was prognosticating this week about some statewide races.
Oh, you want to do that?
Yeah, when we come back.
Okay,
absolutely.
Good. Look at you, knowing the breaks and the temper and the timbre of the tempo of the show.
He's a regular pro.
Yes, he is a broadcasting pro. GeorgeKLoff.com. George Khalaf and I will be back. We'll talk about some state seats as well when we do that. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. George Khalaf is my guest, Khalaf, GeorgeKLoff.com, candidate for State House of Representatives in Legislative District 3, but now kind of wearing his hat as our go-to expert on polling and political consulting. Said something interesting about the state races.
Yes, yeah. Before I get to that super quickly, we were joking about me honoring the
break,
going to the breaks, yes. And all that. Look, I do not take for granted that it is my joy and my privilege to be on with you, Seth. I guess I just wanted to make sure that I say that I don't
George,
take this for granted.
No, you took it the wrong way. I have to tell you, I think I speak for every radio host in the world who has a few pet peeves or a few concerns in life or in professional life, which is people that don't understand there's a commercial break. They don't understand that this is not a runaway train. I remember a certain event we were at some years ago, I think I'll not use the names to protect the guilty here, but it was a panel of 3 national radio hosts. I remember it well. It was in Georgia. And one of them was just going and going and going and going. And it finally went time to next guy said, what do you have to say about what so-and-so said? He said, have you ever heard of a commercial break? You know? No, I respect.
It's a nod to my appreciation
Yes,
for not just being you being a good friend, but allowing me to do this. So on the national races, if I could spend a minute or minute and a half on this, there was a early weekend analysis put out by a very reputable analyst based in Virginia that said that Arizona was going to move from a toss-up to a leans Democrat state. I saw that instantly, and I had tons of opinion. Why? Because I've been neck deep in Arizona politics for 16 years. Some of my predictions have been wrong. Many of them have been correct. And so this is how I broke it down. That, yes, we have an incumbent governor. But these are the 3-4 reasons why I do not believe Arizona goes to the left. And I want to make sure and make it clear for folks because I want you to be able to, as you hear this, say this to your friends and family because it's important. Because half of politics is the self-fulfilling prophecy theory, meaning if we repeat something over and over and over again, people will feel like that's just the prevailing will. And then some folks will go in that direction. 1, Arizona is at premier registration advantage, the highest that we've been in the history of our state. 2, Democrats are lower from a raw total registered voters than they were 4 years ago, meaning even though the state has grown, there are less raw registered Democrats today than there were 4 years ago. 3, Republicans are now more than the independent voters. And in general, while independents in some races have leaned to the left, in general, independents in Arizona, especially when the top issue is immigration or affordability, generally lean center to center-right. Right? Yes, there are a lot of independents. So when I put this video out, people are saying, well, George, you forgot about the independents. I didn't forget about the independents. It's just generally independents in Arizona on safety, public safety, immigration, and affordability issues lean to the right. On education, they may lean slightly to the left. It depends on the exact narrative. And finally, there's not been a single poll that shows that who I believe is going to be the nominee in the Republican Party because he's up in almost any poll that's out there in Congressman Biggs. There's not been a single poll that shows that he is down more than the margin of error, meaning that we're all in the margin of error or that there's tied. So what is it that's causing folks, other than to say, oh, it's an incumbent governor, her favorability has gone down. It's not sky high. Arizona's economic rankings have gone down. And look, when you have affordability crunches at the federal level, you're the governor of the state, meaning that you're the one that's left holding that back. So if gas prices are high and there's things that are happening in Arizona, it's a problem. It also doesn't help that you vetoed 2 tax cut bills, and apparently it was announced today she walked away from the negotiating table on the budget because she wants way too many things that the progressive base wants and not enough things that actually are reasonable to pass in the state of Arizona. So all of that to say, I believe the governor's race will go to the Republicans. It doesn't mean everyone can sit on their hands and not do anything until November, but that means that it's too premature to say from today that this race is anything other than a toss-up because we have to work our tails off.
Yeah, so if she's walking away from, if Katie Hobbs is walking away from negotiations on the budget, this is a fascinating thought to comprehend as just a citizen of Arizona. How do you get a budget? How do you get a budget?
At some point, someone's going to have to. In that game of chicken when you played as a kid, someone's going to have to do that. And it's definitely not going to be the Senate president and the Speaker of the House because we know what has to get done. It's going to have to be the governor. Her demands are not within reason for what the budget situation mandates and where the state of Arizona is at today.
That's what I'm thinking too, which I think is probably a really poor political calculation on her part because it seems to me that if you have a united President and House of Chairman, Speaker of the House of Representatives, who are based in a reality that is not being dragged down by the millstone of the progressive base, which we are not a progressive base state, that she's going to have to be the one to cry uncle on this. It seems to me. Can we talk a little bit about ESA controversy?
Yes.
Okay.
Always.
All right. We'll be right back. Gold and silver are in the news a lot currently as more people are looking to protect their wealth with real, tangible, hard assets that are also easy to liquidate. and gold and silver have, of course, been used against inflation and market conditions for thousands of years. You know who I endorse, CMI Gold and Silver. I've been with them for a while now, and I highly recommend them for low premiums and high customer service satisfaction. Check them out on their website, cmigs.com. Or give them a call, where you will always be chatting with a non-commissioned broker. CMI Gold and Silver has been in business for more than 50 years, started here in Phoenix, still headquartered here in Phoenix, still owned by the same family, and they have been helping clients nationwide since 1973. CMIGS.com or toll free at 1-800-528-1380. Let's talk about ESAs. First of all, for those that don't know what ESAs are, go ahead.
ESAs stand for the Empowerment Scholarship Account, which is a program that allows families to take, on average, $7,500 per child and utilize it for the educational setting that best fits their needs, meaning that's full home educating, hybrid schooling, micro school, private school, and any variation of that, or a whole bunch of what we call asynchronous classes, meaning mom or dad says, okay, I want to buy math class from here, religion class from there, science class from here, so on and so forth, and you piece it together. And if you're a kiddo who has a diagnosis, you can get somewhere
wraparound services, as we used to call them.
100%. Right. You can get, if you've, for example, have autism and a certain individualized education plan, you can get, north of $35,000.
Why were you looking at me and pointing and saying, if you have autism?
No.
Okay. All right.
General.
All right. Okay.
That's what an ESA is. It's a school choice program.
Okay. All right. A lot in the news lately. A lot because of some bad reporting, I think, or at least political reporting, not giving us the straight facts and the straight scoop.
Yes. So this is how you know. I'm going to jump to the very end super quick. This is how you know things have gone awry when this reporter now has resulted in, one, blocking some people, and then two, saying, oh, there's too much vitriol on X, email me. Like, he won't even have a back and forth, because this is what's happening. There was a claim that said that the rate of misspending, which is a big word to say, was 20%. 20% is a gargantuan percentage. I mean, obviously we saw that. We're like, there's no way. The Department of Education just issued a report with a true randomized sample, meaning you take a little bit of all four of the ways that we pay for school and for education services through the program. I don't have to get into all the details, but we have four payment methods, and they found a rate of unallowable expenditures at 2%, and those that were indefensible, or what they called egregious, was at 0.3%, meaning out of $1 billion program, unallowable was $20 million and indefensible was $3 million. $1 of indefensible spending is no good, okay? But these rates compared to rates on SNAP and Medicaid, Medicare, pale in comparison. Those are all between 7 and 12%, mind you. And we've recovered $1.2 million already of spending, and we pause accounts for parents that do it like actually fraudulently or negligently, and cases have been sent for potential prosecution or at least review by attorneys. I say all that to say, what other program in government gives you transaction level data? Mm-hmm. Raise your hand if you think a K-12 public school has transaction level data available for the public to review. The answer is zero. None of them. Zilch. This is the only program at that level of accountability. Maximum accountability and maximum usage for parents. So that's what we look for. Maximum flexibility for parents and rapid accountability for the taxpayers. What else can we ask for? 103,000 kids are being served by this program, but because the progressive left and teachers unions do not want it to be so, because they want children to be in a one-size-fits-all, right? They're coming after this program, and they're using a member of the media who has just gone vitriolic against the program. And so now there's a uniform request to retract. You have been proven incorrect. Be willing, as we talked about earlier, and retract. And so far, he is unwilling to retract.
I think so. I think, too, there's another element. Of course, I understand the establishment, the education establishment, what Bill Bennett used to call the blob, which is the combination of the teachers' unions and the hardened interests in not having anything but a one-size-fits-all public school system. I've always thought the phraseology of public school or public education was used too stintingly. We're talking about educating the public. That's what it should mean, and it shouldn't mean just one kind of school when you're talking about a vast and diverse public. But the other thing that I think is going on here is there's been this renewed wake-up call to government fraud, particularly, I think, perhaps starting in Minnesota and now being taken to other states. There's a lot of effort exposing fraud in California. I had Karen Werner here, Senator Werner here, a couple Fridays ago talking about the
in our backyard.
In our backyard. Just the kind that makes you want to cry, especially when you look at the population it was visited upon and what they did to them, the Native American population. So I'm almost wondering if there's this effort to say, okay, we'll investigate fraud, but only in these sacred cows that that threaten the progressive agenda. I get a sense that that's what this is. There's an element of that here. We can't know for sure. But your point is when you're finding 0.3% against a traditional 12% and all the focus is on the 0.3, something's rotten in the state of Denmark.
Well, look. If there was an equal amount of stories to the $600 million, which, by the way, is 1/4 of the potential fraud that you alluded to that Senator Warner's been talking about. Right. We've already verified $600 million made its way to Pakistan. Yeah. And we have a reporter who is hell-bent on demonizing parents for what could be – that's not even fraud because fraud's a legal term – of spending that you cannot back up at $3 million. $600 million and $3 million. You're talking, Seth, stories multiple times a week.
Right.
I don't see multiple times a week stories about the $600 million or the $2.4 billion of the overall program. Right? Look at how much they've tried to demonize that YouTuber that went after the Leering centers in Minneapolis and everything
centers.
And everything that he did, and now what he's doing in
you see what
in
Gavin
California.
Newsom did to him online this week?
I mean,
it's disgusting.
Of course, because the moment someone's exposing something you don't want to have exposed, everyone loses their minds.
Yeah.
Why are more people talking about this? Again, this phrase cannot be repeated enough. What else can we ask for from a program that has ultimate flexibility for parents and rapid accountability for the taxpayers? We should strive to have every taxpayer-funded program work that way. And look, I would say as a legislator, I'm going to explore ways to bring the transparency that we have on the ESA program to other government programs.
That's exactly what
Because why would we not have transaction-level data then? If we're going to do that, let's do it for the public school districts, and let's see where we're spending tens of millions of dollars on stadiums and different things and school districts going bankrupt and trips here, there, and everywhere, but we're not allowed to talk about those.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so good about what the superintendent did in showing what the real transparency is. Perhaps it's too obvious to say, but when you can't get transaction-level data out of the public school system, am I using the terminology right, transaction-level data out of the public school system, you should have to ask why, because you know someone has those numbers, because people do. I mean, I know the education system pretty darn well, and I know that they collect reams of data. The fact that they won't share it makes you want to ask the question why. Yeah, makes you want to ask the question why. I know how hard I know how much data they collect because listen, anyone who's ever applied to be a teacher, you know how many hoops you go through, and anyone who is in charge of administering a school, you know how much data you have to put together. Why you can't release it? In fact, it's the mark of a good school, always been the mark of a good school, how transparent they are, how much they're willing to share. All right, George and I will come back with a closing thought in a moment. Want to thank George Khalaf for spending his hour with us. It's actually a big demand that we ask of you, and we're glad that you come here, George, to do it because it's time away from the campaign trail. George is running for State House of Representatives. Legislative District 3 here in Arizona. So thank you for doing that. You want to wrap a bow on everything here for us today?
I do. I always strive in every time I talk, whether on air or in front of a group, to end with a call to action, but that's also positive and uplifting because I think we need to do more from a public official perspective in casting a vision and purporting hope. So we have a little more than 2 weeks left in this Lenten season, and whether or not you are a Christian or not, or even a Catholic or Protestant or whatever Christian denomination, this is a season for me of a deep reflection and understanding of the path that Jesus took to the cross, and most importantly, what he did for us. I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. What he did for us 3 days later when he rose from the dead. And why I call that is because we're entering this next juncture of this campaign cycle, meaning that come April, things get kicked into high gear. This is when the stuff starts flying around. This is when accusations start being made and mailers start getting sent out. There's already races where that's already been happening. I would call everybody to remember, what is it that we want for our state? What is it as individuals relative to Jesus' message for us, his message to the world, in the way he conducted himself, in the way that he proclaimed truth, in the way we as Christians, and this is a special message to fellow believers, remember that we are held to accounts in a different way. We talked about this earlier on in the show, as we should. And so be careful what you type, be careful what you say, understand God's will for your own life. Let us look to what God's will is for our state, for our leaders. Pray for those. We started the first prayer call for my campaign on Thursday morning. Why? Because I literally would not be able to function on a day-to-day basis without prayer. I am so adamant about it and so grateful that individuals are able to hop on, and I want more to join. And so that's my message. Let's look to the future. Let's look to God and his love and mercy, but justice, the full nature of what is proclaimed in the word, and apply that to our lives. And let's look to him, especially as we close out this season and as we go into the July 21st primary and the November election.
I love that, George, because it seems to me too many people think there's a political loophole or a political exception to being decent to one another, which is what we're called to do and be. Thank you. Thank you for running a campaign of such great moment and decency. And thank you for running. You know, it takes a lot to do this sort of thing. People have no idea how hard it is to run for any office and the slings and arrows that you take. So thank you for keeping it, for doing it and for keeping it such an honorable campaign. If you want to help support an honorable man running an honorable campaign that you will be proud to have supported once he is in office, go to georgekhalaf.com, Khalaf, and take it from me. You will be proud of any help you can give. I promise you that. Thank you, George. We'll be right back.